the first part of the session, and let's talk about e-GMAT, the company, the people behind the e-GMAT, who we are and what is it that we do. So let me actually move forward. So about 8 minutes over here, guys. So e-GMAT as a company, we were founded in September 2011. Our goal was to help non-natives ace the GMAT. And since then, we've helped about 5,200 plus students so far, and still counting. We add about 300 students every month to the e-GMAT family. Our claim to fame is that we have more reviews by non-natives than any other test prep company in the world. So if you look at GMAT Club or Beat the GMAT, you count the number of reviews by non-natives of any company, you'd find that we have more reviews. In fact, on GMAT Club, we account for about 60% of all the reviews by non-natives. Our key to success, I think we're probably the only company in the world that's focused on non-natives, and we're probably the only company that focuses on learning effectiveness. So I think these two things really help us help our customers be more efficient while they're learning and be more successful consequently on the GMAT. So for those of you, and actually let me ask this question over here. How many of you have taken the e-GMAT free trial? So if you go to e-GMAT.com and log in, how many of you have taken the e-GMAT free trial? Or even if you're e-GMAT students, you've of course taken a lot more than the free trial. Let's get a few more responses there. I have over 230 students here, and I have less than that. It's a simple yes, no question. If you've logged into e-GMAT.com, access one of the free concepts, and you've taken the free trial. If you haven't, then you haven't. So we have over 150 responses that I think is pretty good. 75% participation is what I usually strive for. So about 2/3 of you, or about 70% of you, haven't taken the free trial. So for those of you who have, one of the things that you'd realize is that everything in e-GMAT is wonderfully audiovisual. What it really means is when you're learning something, you actually see that on your screen, the wonderful visuals, you hear it, and then you read it. So it engages your auditory, your visual cortex, as well as your ability to read, and that makes learning much more effective. But if you're not learning that is something that's useful, then that's not very useful in the end. And what makes e-GMAT probably the most successful is the people behind e-GMAT. Our philosophy has been that we hire the best and the brightest, and we make sure that they work full time at e-GMAT. And this is very important for us, and this is very different from most of the other test prep companies where 90 to 95% of their staff works part time, and this is something which has enabled us to actually revise our courses faster and provide learning that's much more effective. Here's some data which talks about the non-native success story. This is again based on GMAT Club only, not Beat the GMAT. But again, you can see the difference in numbers. 2013 and actually since early 2013 to now, we've had a lot of success with our students, and you can really see. So this is the data that was computed based on their share GMAT experience section, and basically what you see is the number of debriefs posted by e-GMAT students versus the number of debriefs posted by students from any other test prep company. So a lot of people are confused about reviews because they read a lot of reviews, and I think the best way to look at reviews is to see if there are real people behind them. And one of the things that you would see on e-GMAT.com is basically if you go there, look at the reviews, you can see the LinkedIn profiles of people to really see that there's a real person behind each reviewer. In fact, about 80% of the reviews are behind there. So you can look at their LinkedIn contacts and see where they're studying, etc., etc. Here are a few things about e-GMAT faculty. So this is actually, given where we are right now, this is probably half the faculty list right now. But one of the things that you would really see is that most of the faculty is someone who's a topper in his or her field. For example, myself, I haven't done really well just on test prep programs, but Prior to starting e-GMAT, I was running a $25 million business at Honeywell in Phoenix. Payal, at the same time, was working for NASA through Honeywell. She's a top ranker, and not just 99 percentile, but an absolute top ranker in CBSC, and she was a topper at BITS Pilani. I want to do a quick check over here. How many of you can hear me clearly, or how many of you? I'm sorry about that. I think I hit the poll. How many of you can see the presentation and not now, but could see the presentation earlier? Let me clear the answers. Can you put in the poll results again? So if you could see the presentation earlier, I think for those of you who are saying no, you should just join again and things should work fine for you. Okay, thank you very much. One of the other things that I can do is I can just refresh this once again, and I think things can work a lot better with refresh. Okay. One of the advantages of having people work full time is that they deliver quality product, and this is something that you really see as in some of the awards that we've won. Last year, so the year before last, when it was probably the only time when GMAT Club held a best presenter competition, a competition between test prep companies, e-GMAT was voted, and Shraddha from e-GMAT, she was voted as the best presenter. Again, on the verbal forum, what you would find is we've done more on GMAT Club's verbal forum than actually any other test prep company out there. I think I'm just at about the end of this, so we used about 8 minutes of your time. I'll use another couple of minutes or so. So we fundamentally offer two different kinds of courses. The first course that we offer is Verbal Online. And Verbal Online is for students who'd like to learn at their own pace and need a system that that is much more effective than studying from a book and need support along with it. So Verbal Online offers e.g. maths intense correction, critical reading comprehension, and integrated reasoning courses. On top of it, it adds 5 mocks from 800 score, and on top of that, it also adds GMAT Club test, which I think is a very, very nice bonus. It comes for $199. So fundamentally, everything that you've been seeing in the free trial, all those courses that are listed in the free trial are a part of Verbal Online, with the exception of live sessions. Fundamentally, Verbal Online is the world's most comprehensive online course. Verbal Live Prep includes everything that Verbal Online offers, and on top of it, it adds another 36 to 40 hours of live session. And this is a live session in the way we are interacting right now, and it also adds a few more workshops. Let me ask a question over here. For those of you who are over here, how many of you are retakers? Let me again clear the poll. Just give me 1 second, guys. Clear the poll. How many of you are retakers, or how many of you have taken the GMAT once before, at least once before? Okay, so we do see we do have about 42% of you who are retakers, and so for retakers, so if you have an official score, Verbal Live Prep actually offers, and thank you very much, a score improvement guarantee. And basically what it really says is, if you have a verbal score out of 60, let's say you have a 30 out of 60, we guarantee that your score will improve to 34. If you have a 32 out of 60, we guarantee that your score will improve to 36. If you have a 36 out of 60, then we guarantee that your score will improve to 40, or you get your money back. Here's the calendar for actually not the February batch, but the March batch calendar. We have a batch starting very, very soon. And so you can really see the various sessions over here. Out of these sessions, we actually give out a few sessions free of charge, and these are the sessions that you can attend free of charge. Everyone can attend free of charge. One of the few things that I want to talk about, this course is truly designed for working professionals. some of the sessions, what you'd really see is that every session takes place on the weekend. The time over here is Pacific time, which means if it's morning in US, it's evening in India. So just in terms of a comparison as to what verbal light prep offers, it actually offers more of everything when you look at the verbal part of things, and you can compare it to some of the other courses out there. We are having a special on it. We still have the early bird discount going on till end of day tomorrow for $299. Again, you can really compare the guarantee with every other course out there. And one of the things that I want to really say is that e-GMAT, we have a guarantee which says you get your money back. With most of the other courses, the guarantee really is that you actually take the course again. So you can take it if you want, but yeah, if you want your money back, you get your money back. What's the duration of the course? It's usually about 45 to 60 days. Most people 60 days. Again, there are exceptions to this as well. But I mean, we've had students who've taken exam in 30 days, but those are folks who actually prepare on a dedicated fashion. If you're a working professional, I would budget about 60 days for that. Here are some of the files for verbal light prep. I will leave them open. And you can get the March calendar Ranjan as well. The course price in INR. Okay. So the conversion rate's done usually by a bank, but not usually it's done by a bank, but typically if you want to pay in INR, we do have a net banking facility. All you need to do is you basically need to write to us at rajat@egmat.com or pile@egmat.com, and we can send you those details. With that, if there are no other questions, then approximately it's okay, about 18,000 rupees. $299 convert to 18,000 rupees. Okay, all right. I have a couple of questions. The format of concepts and are these sessions pre-recorded? No, the verbal live prep sessions are so verbal online. And again, I think the best way to answer this question is for you to experience it, just log into e-GMAT. But for verbal online, kind of concepts that we have are what I call as purpose-built concepts, and I'm going to talk about this in the last half of the session today. But this is purpose-built curated content, which is designed for to be consumed in a self-paced fashion. Just to really tell you the extent to which this is purpose-built, for us to create a 15-minute nugget of a course, of a component of the course that goes in verbal online, it takes about 40 hours of effort of our time. And for us to create a 15-minute live session takes about 3 hours of our time. So I mean, it takes that much more effort to create something, and the effort's in the end worth it. So for example, our sentence correction course, which is about 35 to 36 hours, took us close to 2,500 hours of effort overall. Okay, I have a couple of more and then I will move forward. How much personal attention is being paid? So that's a double-edged question. So this is one thing that I would really say is that we address all our students' doubts. So if you go to, and till date, we've addressed close to 7,000 doubts, and we have a very dedicated forum system internally where we address our doubts. And so we've, if you go to egmat.com and if you go against any concept out there, you can ask those. You can see the doubts that are there and how they've been addressed, and you'd see the extent of detail that we do. But one thing that I want to really caution is this is not a private tutoring. So if you have a doubt, we address those, and if you have a doubt against any e-GMAT question, any official question, we address that. And we have we actually dedicated a lot of expert bandwidth to that. But if you really, but again, it's not a personal tutoring service, which is a completely different class of service. How much additional do you have to pay if you are already a verbal life prep student? Nothing. So one of the best things with verbal life prep is once you buy the course, you have access for 6 months, which means you can attend multiple batches. So you can attend up to 4 batches free of charge. And most people don't attend 4 batches. Trust me. Okay. And again, there are quite a few questions, guys. So at the end of the session, I'll be happy to answer any question that you have. But I think let's move forward. I've taken more than my scheduled time. So with that, let's now move right into the session, and I'm going to talk about uh, firstly how to define your GMAT strategy, and then and then how to execute your strategy, and we'll talk about core skills over here. And again, guys, I know you have questions about the e-GMAT course, but if you focus on this, I'd say 70 to 80% of those would be answered directly or indirectly, and then it's going to help you actually prepare for the GMAT as well. So as we talk about defining your strategy and as we talk about executing a strategy, we'll kind of go back and forth because we'll have learnings from first part that will go into the second part and vice versa. So my goal today is to really have you kind of move out with the or exit the session with the understanding of these three questions. One is how are you going to approach your preparation. Second is an understanding of what are core skills and why are they important. And the third thing is to kind of give you a framework on how to evaluate whether you're learning or improving as you get into the preparation mode. If you have a good idea about these three things, then I will be very, very happy. With that, let's move and answer a very, very important question. So when we talk about strategy, what does the word strategy mean to you? And I'm going to just clear the chat window and then bring it over here. What does the word strategy mean to you? Okay, I see approach, a proper plan. And we have a very interesting ticket. Where to play and how to win. I like that, Andrew. A roadmap. SR Panda says it's strengths and weakness. Okay. So SR Panda also says it's time management. Ankur says it's a personalized plan. So what you guys have done in your responses in the chat windows, you've actually put in a lot of things that are part of strategy. Some of you are more complete than others. And I think so. So what I really kind of understand is as a group, you kind of have a fair idea of strategy. And I think if you formally thought about it, you probably would come up with really good answers. But even in the short time, you're coming up with pretty decent answers. So and Ravindra said it's a structured way to achieve a goal. So let's kind of look at what, in my opinion, is strategy. Okay, and as all of you said, a strategy is a plan of action that is designed to achieve a particular goal, and it has a few things which are very, very important here. First of all, it's a plan of action, and it's designed with a goal in mind. If you don't have a goal, then the strategy is basically nothing. In the in the same way as an argument is all about the conclusion, a strategy is all about how would you get to a goal. Okay, so we know what a strategy is. Let's understand what a good strategy is, because you can have many strategies to get to your goal. For example, if your goal is to really score 740, you can, one of the strategies is you do self study and get there. The other is to join a prep course. The third is to do personal tutoring, um, and and uh, uh, and the fourth is to somehow write the exam, which I really don't advise, but it's a strategy, right? So what's a good strategy? A good strategy is something that provides maximum benefit with the least input. Okay, and how it does it? It does it by capitalizing on your strengths and making sure that you put in enough resources uh, uh, to overcome their weaknesses. Okay, so let's talk about some of the hallmarks, and I think this is something which is very important. A lot of people know what strategy is. Uh, a segment of those know what a good strategy is, and I think very few people know these hallmarks of good strategy, and these are something that we've kind of established over time with the experience of thousands of students. So So let's talk about hallmarks of a good strategy. The first is it's very goal driven. I think you guys know that. The second is a good strategy starts with the analysis of your current situation and your current strengths and weaknesses. So I think even before you really say, okay, I'm going to score a 760, you've got to figure out your current situation. If you are in that situation where you're not very strong in verbal, you may and you're decently strong in quant, and you have to take the test within a month because you have an overseas trip, then maybe looking at 760 if your current score is 520 is probably not the best strategy because you cannot devote enough time to really get there. But so that analysis has to be very, very, very important. A good strategy, and the third thing I think is probably the most important point over here. It should have good assumptions and built in. Most of you, I would say, are 25 or above. Let me actually ask this question over here. So, and I'm going to bring this in. How many of you are 25 or above, 25 years or above? And girls, you can still be at 16, but so we have close to 150 responses, 100, close to 160. And what I'm really seeing is about 3-4 or about 70% or more of you answer, and which means you all of you have had a fair life prior to preparing for the GMAT. You kind of understand how long you take to learn, and one thing that I want to kind of caution people against is that know thyself before having those assumptions. Okay, uh, if you are someone who takes longer to learn and who basically has what I call as has an inertia towards learning where you take some time before you get into the groove of something, make sure you understand that because you are a certain personality. A lot of people, what they really see is at their workplace, they know their friends have taken the GMAT and they've taken the GMAT in X number of days. And they really say, if that guy could take the GMAT in X number of days, I'm going to take the GMAT in X number of days as well, and that's going to be enough for me. Again, it 90% of the time that is not true. If your friend's taken 3 months to prepare for the GMAT, you may need 4 months or you may need a month, depending on how fast a learner you are and how much time you can devote towards learning. So do not take your friend's study plan as a study plan that would right away work for you because that had his assumptions or her assumptions baked into it. And finally, you need to plan and execute. So with all of these, create a plan and execute on it. Make sure that you have enough checks in places over there. So Vipul has a question. How do we know that we've done well enough to prepare to take the GMAT exam? You will know, Vipul, and I think one is you would see your ability to answer questions improve tremendously, number one. And the second thing that I want to you would know is because you're going to take marks and you will know that your score is there. Okay, but bottom line is a good strategy is personal. It has numerous checks and places in place, and to ensure that you're going in the right direction. So with that, let's kind of get some clarity on some key terms. And let me add another question, which is not humongous. Let me ask this. How many of you understand what percentile is? Very, very quickly. This, again, if you don't know what percentile means, say no. It's a very important term on the GMAT so that I can spend time on explaining that. So we're going to talk about three terms over here: percentile, accuracy, and ability, right? So again, you understand what percentile is. 1/4 doesn't, and thank you very much. So percentile is really, your relative rank out of a population. If you take the GMAT, about 250,000 people take the GMAT every year. So very simply, if you score 650 on the GMAT, your percentile is 77, which means that out of 250 people, you're better than 192,500. So that's 77 percentile, which means 57,500 people are at the same level or better than you. Similarly, if you score 760, your percentile is 99, which means you're better than pretty much everyone out there. So 247,500, which means just about 2,500 people are at the same level or better than you. Okay, so let me ask again: how many of you now understand percentile? What percentile really means? So I want to kind of see the no quadrant go down. So fundamentally, percentile means your rank out of a population. Okay, so great, we are able to get to 96%, and that is good, and that's kind of good enough for me. So let's move forward. So what's accuracy? Accuracy as a term is a percentage of questions that you've answered correctly. So if you take a quiz which has 20 questions, and if your accuracy is 90%, which means you've answered 18 out of 20 questions correctly. So that's what accuracy is. Right? It's a very simple term. Most people understand that correctly. The term which I want to focus on right now, with the context of percentile and accuracy in there, is ability, which is probably the most important term on the GMAT. What is ability? Ability is, when put in context, your percentile in a particular section. How good you are when compared to a population in, let's say, interaction, in reading comprehension, in problem solving, and data sufficiency. So the reason why I say it's probably the most important term is because GMAT really truly measures your ability. It's a test of ability. That's how the test adapts to your performance, or adapts to you. So a lot of people look at this and say, my accuracy in OG is 80%. I don't know why I can't do well on the GMAT. Accuracy on is probably, it's relevant, but it tells half the story. There's another half to it, and we'll talk about that with a couple of examples in a minute. But one thing that I want to really say is on GMAT, your percentile is a true measure. Accuracy isn't as precise a measure as percentile is. So with that, let's kind of look at building some common ground and how scoring works so that you can define your GMAT strategy. And to do that, I want to kind of understand, how many of you think about GMAT scoring and verbal versus quant? How many of you think, and let me get a poll question. How many of you think your end score out of 800 or GMAT scoring is biased towards verbal over quant, which means your verbal score matters more for a score out of 800 than your quant score? Select yes or no. So I'm going to give you about 30 seconds to think about it while I take a sip of water. All right, so we have about 60% of you think that GMAT scoring does favor verbal over quant, but 40% of you think otherwise. For the 60%, can you tell me why you think that, or how did you figure that out? And here are the results, by the way. Well, again, whether quant's a cakewalk for you and what verbal 46 is completely different. Okay. So I'm going to apply some critical reasoning over you. So the question that I asked is whether the score out of 800 favors the verbal part over quant part. I did not ask which one's more difficult for you, right? And to prove that verbal favors, that GMAT scoring favors, what we will do is we'll look at percentiles. Why? Because as we said, percentile is a true measure. A percentile X percent in verbal, then it really shows how you compare to the test taking population, because in the end, your GMAT score is a percentile as well. Okay, everyone understands your GMAT score in the end is a percentile. So the verbal and quant portion end up in calculating what's your overall percentile, right? Okay, let's see whether verbal rewards you more, and I think so. The answer to this is frankly no. Verbal is not favored over quant, and so I'm going to show you some data, and then I'm going to talk about why this is important over here. So here are some ways to score 700, and I think this philosophy will apply to pretty much any score out there. So you can score 700 if you actually score a 47 on quant, which is 70 percentile, and so the thing in bracket is percentile, and a 39 on verbal, which is 88 percentile, right? Again, remember, whether you have a 39 which on verbal, which represents 88 percentile, or 50 on quant, which represents 88 percentile, in the end, the score out of 60 is a measure of your percentile. Okay, so that's something which is very important. You can also score 700 if you actually score 50 on quant and you score 34 on verbal. So frankly, what I've done is I've kind of crisscrossed your quant and verbal percentiles and I've gotten to the same score. Okay. You can score 700 if you score, so this is what I call as a skewed performance. You can score 700 if you score 49 on quant and 36 on verbal, so which means 81 percentile on quant and 78 percentile on verbal. Or if you score 76 percentile on quant and 82 percentile on verbal, you'd be able to score 700 as well. Again, you crisscross your quant and verbal percentile, and you actually end up scoring the same end score. Do you now think the scoring favors quant over verbal or verbal over quant? Yes, no? Okay. Yes, so some of you were really saying, hey, 14 verbal is 90 percentile, whereas 50 in quant's 90 percentile. Yes, but that really doesn't matter. What matters is what that percentile score contributes towards your score out of 800, because in the end, it's purely your score out of 800 that matters. Now, I'm going to tell you why this is important. So let me ask a question over here. So if I were to ask you who you are and what's your strength, and let me actually ask this question in a different way. Let me open this question over here, and you'll know why this is important. So what's your strength, quant, verbal, or neither? Let me broadcast the results. And let's get 150 responses, guys, at least 150. So what you really see is about 70% of the class thinks that quant's their strength, and they're probably right. Only 8% think verbal is their strength. Now, the problem that I have with this notion over here that verbal is way more important than quant is that a lot of people really take time over quant. So people who take our course end up scoring, 38, 39, 40 on verbal, and 38, 39, 40, is going into 80 to 90 percentiles. And then when I see their quant score, it's about 75 percentile. And then I ask them, hey, are you a quant guy? They say yes. And then ask them, why is it that your quant score doesn't reflect that? And then they basically say, because it didn't spend enough time on quant. And the reason why people don't spend enough time on quant because of this notion. So I want to kind of make sure that I dispel that notion to really say that you need to spend a lot of time on or all your time on verbal, because it's way more important than quant. Make sure you focus on your strengths, because remember, a strategy is something that leverages your strengths and then uh, 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 puts enough resources, which is time, on verbal. Okay. Um, there are some test prep companies that will tell you verbal is way more important than quant, and I think one of the things that you would rarely see is all of those test prep companies will have examples where the verbal score is greater than 46, which is way better than 99 percentile. Okay, and the reason why there is no comparable is because 99 percentile on quant does not exist. And by the way, less than 1,000 people score V48 or higher. Actually, way less than 1,000 people. So while that example still holds true, but it holds true in an area which is not applicable to majority of you. For you, and saying, frankly, it's like saying, hey, because taking an example like this is saying, hey, Instagram sold for $1 billion and it didn't have any revenue. So if you want a company that gets a valuation of $1 billion, you shouldn't have any revenue. And that, I think, in my opinion, is a very absurd example. Why? Because 98%, 99% of the companies that get $1 billion valuation have good revenue. So and check it out. I mean, look out on the web. You would see the examples are talking about verbal scores of 46 or higher, which again is not relevant for a majority of the population. So we've already talked about this. Another misconception that a lot of people have is the 80-80 split is very important. And what I mean by 80-80 split is that to get into a top business school, you should have 80 percentile in quant, 80 percentile in verbal. If you don't have that, then you're not going to get into a top school. This is something that only a few schools look at in the world, and I say a few, probably 3 schools. One is being INSEAD in Paris, in France. I'm sorry. But barring that, what AdCom looks at is your end score, and if you ask, and my proof to that is I've already spoken to quite a few admission committee members. We do host ISB, for example, and we do host a few colleges on our platform. They come and speak on our platform. But if you ask an admission committee member to really say, hey, what's your median GMAT score and what's the 80 percentile split of your GMAT score? Everyone would know it on their fingertips. If you ask them, what's your median quant score and what's your median verbal score? I would say 99% of them would not know that. Try it out. So again, bottom line is make sure you focus on your strengths. Do not leave your strengths away. So with that, let's kind of figure out if you want to score 700. And again, the strategy is going to be applicable to any score, but 700 seems to be that mental bottleneck for a lot of people. If you want to score 700, how would you go about approaching that? So because we have 250 participants over here, what we do is we divide them into 3 segments. And the 3 segments that we look at are the segment of quant viz, it's a segment of engineer, and a segment of commerce or art student. By the way, I got a question over here. Let me ask this poll: can you still see the screen? Let me just clear all answers and just say yes or no if you can see the screen. Okay, most of you can. For those of you who cannot, just join again. Thank you very much, guys. I think sorry for interrupting the flow. So if you are a quant wizard, I'll tell you who a quant wizard is. A quant wizard is someone who actually has an ego towards quant. He or she wants to do well on quant, not just because they want to do well on the GMAT, but because they've always done well and they can't tolerate anything but doing the absolute best on quant. That's what a quant wizard is. An engineer, on the other hand, again, is someone who's really good on quant, but he or she lacks that ego that I talked about in the quant verse. And for the purposes of this discussion, a commerce or an art student is someone who's not good in quant. And for those commerce and art students who are good in quant, put yourself in 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 one of these two buckets. Okay. So again, this is purely we're typecasting people for the benefit of this session itself, and I don't mean to offend any commerce or art students. It's a name that rhymes with the majority of the population. So if you're a quant whiz, make sure you start with your strengths. Make sure you score the best in quant, and for you to score 700, correspondingly, if you scoring 50 or 51 in quant, you need just 33 or 34 in verbal. And for you to get started, even with verbal, make sure that your quant's at least at 49. That you've at least done 60% of the battle before you even start verbal, and you've won that. If you are an engineer, again, maths or quant comes much easier to you. I'll repeat that once again. So if you're a quant whiz, make sure you kind of get to a quant score of 49, which is what is over here, before you even start studying for verbal. Okay, because you would have won half the battle by then if you actually get there. And if you are a quant whiz, doing this will take you no more than 25 hours of effort because you're a quant whiz. Okay. You are an engineer, again, your strategy is quite quant driven, and quant comes more naturally to you than verbal does. Make sure your quant is at least at 48 or 47 before you start tackling verbal. If you're a commerce or an arts student, I would really recommend you start with verbal rather than quant. That's very, very important. Okay. That you focus on your strengths first. Let me ask you, what happens when you see when you take a mock? How many of you have taken a mock over here? Let me actually bring in the poll question. Actually, has a much more fun poll question. Who are you? And in this distribution over here, who are you? Are you a quant whiz? Are you an engineer or a commerce or an art student? Perfect. This is actually a very, very good distribution. I'm happy to see that. In one of my previous sessions about 5 years ago, I had half the class who said that they were quant whizzes, and I was like, that's probably not true. There are very few quant whizzes. What we can really see is the consistency. About 75% of you think that you're good in quant, which I think is very, very true. And about 25% of you think that you're good in verbal. Or you're not good in quant, rather, sorry. Doesn't mean you're good in verbal, means you're not good in quant. So let me ask another question over here. And these are things you would realize that what you think is true for you is true for a bunch of people. And I think those are some of the revelations that you get from this session. Here is it. So how many of you have taken a mock test? Select yes or no. Or the actual, if you've taken the actual GMAT, you've taken a mock test as well. Select yes or no. But 2/3 of you have taken the mock test or a GMAT. I'll tell you what happens when you take a mock test and you don't get a good score. When you take a mock test and you don't get a good score, the first thing that you do is you change your study plan. You change whatever you were doing, right? If you take a mock and you don't get a good score, that's what you do, right? The first thing, chat window, you do is you basically say, oh, I'm doing something wrong. Whatever I was doing isn't working, so let me change what I'm doing. You analyze it, and then you kind of really say, let me change my path. Okay. The problem really is if you're strong in quant and you don't focus on quant, you study verbal, you take a mock test, and you find yourself 150 points away from your target score, you basically panic. Right? It's confusion, there's change of plan. You say the first thought that comes to your mind is, oh my God, will I ever be able to get there? It does lead to depression. You're not happy. You actually become cranky. I know I become cranky when that happens. Right? And so the thing with this is if you're good in quant, if you focus on quant first, and you focus on verbal and take a mock test, what you'd realize is you're probably less than 100 points away from your target score, which in my opinion is very, very, very motivating. You kind of really say, okay, I've done 60-70% of the journey, and I'm 100 points away. So let's move forward. It's much more motivating, right? So that's why I always say focus. And Rochan, your case was the classical case that I see. I mean, what hurts me is when at the end of their prep, e-GMAT students score a 40 or a 41 on verbal and end up scoring a 710 or 720 because they messed up on their quant. So bottom line is, make sure you devote enough time to your strengths. And I'm going to talk about um, how to go about studying. So I think we have 90% of the fundamentals in place right now. So for most non-natives, studying for GMAT happens in two stages, and I want to kind of make sure that you allocate about 160 to 200 hours if you're a non-native to study for the GMAT, which is, by the way, very, very different from 100 hours that Kaplan will tell you. And the reason for that is because there's a lot of learning that we need to do on verbal, and I'm going to talk about that. In terms of when you should take mock, you should definitely take mock to get started. It will give you a very nice sense of what the GMAT's all about. And mock zero should usually be, the pen and paper mock that you have in OG13. It'll give you a very nice sense of where you are, and you'll use those questions really well. From then on, I want to make sure you focus on learning your core skills, and then you take on mocks over here. So in terms of the e-GMAT schedule that I laid out, and you can, for those of you who downloaded the PDF, you can look at it over here. This is the point which is I'd say the point before workshops, before you start taking mocks. Mocks and workshops are kind of interspersed over here, and in my opinion, that's the best and the most effective way to really take mocks and workshops. If you do that, then you'd spend your first 30 days learning the main skills that are there on verbal, assuming you do quant elsewhere, and then the last 3 hours will help you get to your target score. Most people actually do this in about 45 days to 2 months, and my assumption really is if you're a working professional, you can devote in a 7-day period that includes weekends, you can devote between 18 and 20 hours per week. Okay, and which I think is something that most people are able to do that. Again, I think that's something which is here. So let's talk about a use case of an engineer who scored low on Mach 0, who scored a 560 on Mach 0. So if you've scored 560 on Mach 0, and we saw some of the folks over here kind of associated with that. The first thing is, if you're an engineer, you're going to tackle quantum. You scored 560, quant's your strength, you're going to tackle quant. From then on, one of the things that I recommend is, study sentence correction, then study critical reasoning or reading comprehension, and vice versa. And if you're an e-GMAT student, why I recommend SC? Because SC gives you certain core skills that help you in both CR and RC. I'm going to talk about what those core skills are. In fact, you will experience those core skills as we do the 2 examples that we have today. So where do you study from, or what do you study on quant? If you're an engineer, you should be decent with 70 to 75% of the topics on quant. So based on mock, you've got to really tackle what do you want to do with quant. Where should you study SC from? From the SC study plan, CR study plan, and RC study plan correspondingly. And every e-GMAT student get their study plan with their purchase receipt. It's a part of the purchase receipt. In fact, the purchase receipt has a lot of useful links. Please make sure you go through that. How long would it take? If you are an engineer, it will take you about 20 hours to tackle quant. And the corresponding study plans have these durations. Again, remember, this duration includes the time to learn the concepts, the time to learn application, and to practice hundreds and hundreds of questions. So all of this includes about 1,500 questions you will have practiced 1500 questions by the time you're done with these 3 study plans. So in terms of where to study from quant any good quant book, and again, you can really see the e-GMAT piece over here. We support OG13 actually right now, so this should not be OG12 anymore. This is again an old slide. So we do both. Where is the study plan again? It's a part of your purchase receipt. I have a couple of old study plans that I can actually share right now, but I would really recommend that you look at your purchase receipt. Otherwise, go on your blogs. Go on the e-GMAT blog, so egmat.com/blogs, and you should be able to download the study plan. So these are sample study plans, but we've improved on these quite a bit since then. So if you go to egmat.com/blogs, then that would be good. Official guide. And guys, everyone gets a study plan. It's a part of your purchase receipt, and it gets sent by a computer. And computers don't usually make mistakes. So again, so with that, let's kind of move forward on how to study, and let's kind of look at a bit of the fun part over here. And we're going to talk about accuracy versus ability. And once again, as a reference, I basically have the core definitions of ability and accuracy over here. All right, with that, let's move forward. So I'm going to give you a brief overview of accuracy versus ability and kind of tell you why ability matters way more than accuracy. And what you see over here is two people taking a GMAT mock test, or for that matter, even the real GMAT. So in case one, what we're really seeing is so this over here is your difficulty level. Okay, and so difficulty level is on this particular axis. The higher you go, the higher the difficulty level. On the next axis, you have the various question numbers. So we're going to take case one of student where he answers the first question correctly. And remember, the first question is always an average difficulty level, which is about 560, 570 on the GMAT. When a student answers the first question correctly, the student gets this next question, which is more difficult than the first question, because the algorithm is trying to figure out what your ability is. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Then, as you answer the second question correctly, you get a question, the third question, which is of more difficulty level. As you answer that question incorrectly, then you basically get a question which is of a lower difficulty level. You answer that correctly, you get a question which is of a higher difficulty level. You answer that incorrectly, you again get a question which is a lower difficulty level. So again, what you really see is, in terms of your ability, the algorithm is able to kind of gauge your ability and say this is kind of where you are. And let me make this line white so that we can see it better. Okay. Let's take case two, where the student answers the first question incorrectly, gets a lower difficulty level question. He or she answers that correctly, gets a higher difficulty, again makes a mistake, gets a lower difficulty level, and then answers two questions correctly, and your overall ability that is gauged is over here. And this is kind of where your ability is by the algo. Okay. So one of the things that you really notice is how many questions have both students answered correctly? How many questions have both students answered correctly? The same number, it's 3 out of 5, right? But they are at very, very different ability levels. They're very, very different ability levels, right? So fundamentally, what is important on the GMAT is you kind of have two challenges. Section the first few are important. I'm going to talk about that. But really, if you look at the challenges, and that's something which is going to be true for any adaptive algorithm. You have two challenges over here. The first challenge that you have questions. I mean, use case one, he got more difficult questions. So every question is an opportunity to gain points, and if you get difficult questions, you get more points if you answer them correctly. So the first challenge is to be eligible to get difficult questions, and the second is to answer them correctly. And you need ability for challenge one and challenge two. And yes, you've got probably the first question right. Okay. So let's talk about GMAT as a test of your ability, and this is what I'm going to present to you now is real data of GMAT prep. And GMAT prep, the algorithm is supposed to be very, very similar to the algorithm of the actual GMAT, right? So I have two use cases of students who answered GMAT prep questions, and what you really see is question numbers, and the things in red are questions which they got wrong. Okay, so let's get your best guess. So this guy got 11 questions incorrect. This guy got 9 questions incorrect. Okay, but the thing really is, beyond the first 10 questions, they kind of are very, very similar, right? Would you agree? Beyond the first questions, they're very, very similar. Agreed? In the first 10, this guy got 2 wrong, but other than that, they're very, very similar, right? Okay. So what do you think is the score of student 2? I'm going to really mark down over here. What do you think this guy scored out of 60? How much do you think this guy scored out of 60? Out of 60, remember, it's just the verbal part. He had 11 mistakes overall. So this guy, and I see all sorts of answers, this guy scored 32 out of 60. Okay, and 32 out of 60 is about 65 percentile. How much do you think this guy scored out of 60? Okay, you guys are pretty good, I must say. I must give it to you. So this guy scored 43 out of 60. Just 2 questions. Okay, and when you look at the percentile here, and I'm going to remove the annotation so that things are a bit more clear. His percentile on the verbal section was 97 percentile, which means out of his rank or his ability was about 7,500. Okay, remember 250k people take the GMAT. This guy scored 65 percentile. 32 is 65 percentile, which means according to GMAT there were more than 87,000 people who were better than GMAT verbal. Why do you think this happened? Why do you think this happened? Just 2 questions. Asher is right. He got more difficult questions. Okay, he got more difficult questions. The algorithm, the GMAT algorithm, is probably one of the world's best algorithms that way, right? But the reason is because student 1 got more difficult questions. So again, one of the things that I want you to really say is, a lot of you really talk about accuracy, and you can really see how flawed accuracy can be when you talk about the GMAT, right? Accuracy is a very, very imperfect measure. There's a world of difference between a 97 percentile and a 65 percentile guy. Because he got a series of questions correct after that. So think about it, how the GMAT thought about it. And I'm going to just spend 1 more minute on this. So for this guy, he got the first 2 wrong. So remember, the first question is at 550 level. If you get that wrong, you get a question probably at 450 level. He got that wrong as well. So according to GMAT, and according to the algo, the third question should be a 300 level, which he got it right. Then this question probably was a 450 level, which he got it right. Then this question was probably a 550 level. So number 5, uh, 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 he was still at the same point as question number 1. Okay. Then the 6th question that he got was actually more like 600 level, because remember, one of the things that the algorithm does is it also adapts its step size. It also adapts what's the delta between the prior question, the difficulty level of the prior question, and the next question. So it adapts that. So the next question that we got was 600 level. We got that right. Then 650, 700. His first 700 level question was his 8th question. Okay. And then he got a series of difficult questions. So that's kind of how he got 700 level questions. But at question number 8, on the other hand, this guy probably got his 3rd question as 700 level question. So you kind of can see the opportunity that the first guy did. So Shrikant says, is there no way I can compensate if you make a few initial mistakes? No, Shrikant, I absolutely don't want you to have a takeaway with that. If this guy probably did four fewer mistakes over here, he would have probably gotten to a score of 40 or so. But that, I think, becomes very, very challenging, especially when you do the first 2 questions wrong. If you're doing a 500 level and a 400 level question wrong, then your likelihood of continuously getting 700 level questions correct is very, very low, right? Because if you're getting 400 and 500 level questions wrong, and then you say suddenly I'm going to get 2700 level, then probably someone else is taking the exam. Otherwise, it's probably not possible. Do you guys agree? Right? So again, the algorithm assumes that you are human and assumes that you are not cheating. So there is a benefit of doing well on the first 10 questions, which is, you basically get into the more challenging questions early on. And the other thing is, once you get into beyond the first 10 questions, the penalization of answering a question incorrectly actually is lower, just because the step sizes become lower. Unless or until you do like 5 questions incorrect in a row, then the step sizes adapt again. Here's some other stat. I'm not going to go into it. It's published on GMAT Club, but really what it's really saying is, I think Bunel from GMAT Club did some experiments where on the verbal part, he answered the first 30 questions correctly, and he answered the last 11 incorrectly in a row, and he got V30, which is 83 percentile. This is again on GMAT Prep. He actually said, let me repeat the experiment where I'm going to answer the first 16 correctly. I'm going to answer the middle 11 incorrect in a row. And then I'm going to answer the remaining correctly. So he still got V38. Then he said, let's see what happens when you do the first 11 incorrect. Again, an unrealistic example, but you can really see. He ended up getting a V22, which is 27 percentile. This is despite getting question numbers 12 to 41 correct consecutively. Okay. And one of I did an experiment where you did the first 6 incorrect and then answered every other question correctly. You still end up getting a V33. So again, kind of gives you an idea. But one of the things that I want to impress upon is, yes, here is the scoring pattern, but you can't game the system. You have to have the ability to answer questions correctly to really get there. You can't really say I'm going to spend half my time on the first 10 questions and that's going to improve my accuracy. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. Your ability doesn't increase with the amount of time spent per question. The ability is what your ability is. The algo doesn't. There's very little evidence that the algo takes the time to answer. So Vikram, I can't really definitively say yes, but I haven't seen that evidence in the experiments that we've done. So let's look at the core skills. So we're done with I'd say about 50% of the session. We've spent about 50 minutes on doing this, but let's now look at the core skills part of the session. Okay, and this is something which is very, very important. So I'm going to talk about core skills in quant, and I'm going to talk first and then verbal, and then I'm going to use this to really impress upon why is it that non-native struggle in verbal. So to do that, I'm going to have you answer a very, very simple quant question. And here is the question, and here is a set of answer choices. I'm going to reopen this question, take about 90 seconds to answer this question. Last 10 seconds, folks. Let's get in those answers. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Let me close the poll. I want to ask another question over here, which is how did you end up solving this question? And let's get a poll question over here as well. Yes, here it is. How did you solve this question? Let me just clear the previous answers and get this. How did you solve this question? Did you do it by making equations? Did you do it by number substitution? Or did you know a crazy formula that, and there are formulas that exist to solve such a question. So if you use algebra, but most likely you did it by making equations. Most likely. All right, let's get a few more answers, guys. Let me broadcast the results for the second one. So about 80% of you actually solved this question by making equations, and then 18% solved by number substitution. Let me broadcast the results as well. The correct answer on this question is choice B, which is 7, and I'm going to present the solution later on. But let me ask a question. Do you really think that the first choice when making equations, do you think that's the most efficient way of solving the question? In terms of time, in terms of your brain power, do you think it's the most efficient way? I can mathematically prove it to you, and I am a quant whiz, so I can mathematically prove it to you that it isn't. Okay, if you use equations, then you're more likely to actually take longer, number one. And if you use equation and in a format like this where you give an answer choices, you're more likely to make a mistake, right? So why is it that you still went ahead went ahead with making equations? Why? Okay, Durant said that you're used to it. It's methodical. Piyush, it's not foolproof. I'll prove that to you. Um, but yes, you've gotten used to it. A majority of us are used to solving quant problems this way. When we see Jacob is not 12 years younger than Michelle, we really equations start forming in our brain. We say m is equal to j plus 12, right? You're used to it. You've been doing that since sixth grade, right? So the brain automatically starts your synapses automatically the synapses in the brain automatically have those pathways that are built up that really say hey j is equal to or does it m is equal to j plus 12, right? So we know that, but tell me one thing, or in other words, in simple, your brain's wired to solve this kind of a question. How much do you think your brain's wired to solve verbal? It probably is not. It's wireless. Okay, it's fused. All right. So I'm going to talk about verbal, and we're going to so let's understand some of the core skills that are required to answer this question. I'm going to have the chat window over here, so you guys have been a very good audience. So here's the solution for those of you who want to see the solution very briefly, but you're going to get the PDF as well. And then Roshan says it goes haywire. All right. I like that you guys are humorous. And it's wonderful actually. I think humor is probably a very good thing to, if you want to keep yourself motivated. Um, so let's talk about the core skills. What are the core skills that you think you need to solve a question like this? Because remember, we're talking about core skills here. What are the core skills that we need to solve a question? Okay, algebra, logic, okay, equations. You need to know how to approach them. So fundamentally, word problem interpretation, yes, SV, very good. I think you've kind of identified pretty much all the core skills. So if I were to list everything that you said, you kind of have four core skills over here. One is work with algebraic variables. Second is, so you should really know how to work with X, Y, blah, 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 blah. The second is you should be able to convert statements into equations. Jacob is now 12 years younger than Michelle. You should be able to convert that into equations. Doing that is not enough. You should also be able to relate multiple statements or multiple equations, and then you should be able to solve them, right? These are the four simple skills. Abraham, what you said is number two, words to equations, right? These are the four core skills, right? Now, let me ask a question over here. What do you think would happen if the core skill that you lacked was number two? You're able to convert statement into equations, but where you spent a lot of your time improving or practicing was number four. What do you think would happen to your accuracy? You basically end up nowhere, right? Now, let me ask this. Well, it'll. I won't say it'll drop. It will not. So let me ask this question. For those of you who've been studying for verbal for some time, so I want to kind of I'll try and kill two birds with one stone over here. So for the segment of population over here that has been trying to study verbal for some time, have you guys experienced a scenario where your verbal score increases initially, but then reaches a plateau? And let me ask this question. It's a yes and no question, and it's only for those people who've been studying for verbal for some time. Have you experienced a scenario where your verbal score initially increases when you start to study for verbal, but then reaches a plateau? And no matter how much you study, it's like banging your head against a wall. The verbal score doesn't seem to budge. And about 90% of you, 96% of you have seen that. And the reason why this happens is because you focus on the wrong core skills. Okay. So let's kind of look at what are the core skills for verbal. By the way, when do you think natives learn the core skill for verbal? And I like Kamal's humor. Usually it happens, I would say, in my opinion, 28 to 34 is a bracket when it really happens. If you cross to 37, then it's time to get to 40, 41. But 24 to 28 to 34 is the bracket when it usually happens. So let's let me ask a question. When you think about core skills for verbal, when do you think natives start to learn the core skills for verbal that are required? At what stage? Okay, Pradeep says third grade when they arrive on Earth. Okay, middle school. Well, learning English and core skills for GMAT verbal are very, very different. A lot of schools are a lot of the tests are recognizing something. I'm going to talk about a little snippet, but but fundamentally, most natives start learning the core skills, and I'm talking about the core skills, not the same extent of application, but the core skills for verbal at a very young age. And I learned this about a year. So this was actually March of last year. So this was about a year or so ago. Um, I have a 6-year-old daughter, and about a year ago, I was looking for schools for her. So I visited various schools, and as I visited them, I kind of went into various classrooms, and schools over here, allow you to tour classrooms while they're going on. So here's what I found in a third grade classroom over here. There were students who were studying reading comprehension and reading skills, and they were really looking at stuff such as compare and contrast. They were looking at identifying author's purpose. They're looking at identifying the causality that existed in a passage. They're looking to differentiate facts from opinion. Okay, they were looking to make inferences from, and they were looking to get to the main idea. The strategies that they were looking to do was to make connections between statements. They were looking to do predictive reading, okay, and by asking the question, they were looking at summarizing portions of the passage before they moved on to the next para, okay, and visualizing the information. Again, were we as non-natives, were we ever taught these things? And these are fundamentally the core skills that you require for RC. Yes, we were doing algebra at that age. Yes. Again, this is third grade in US, guys. Okay, not in India. This is in US. Okay, so bottom line is, what the advantage that you have in quant, natives have in verbal. Okay, so that's something that is there. So with that, let's look into a bold-faced question. And how many of you love bold-faced question? How many of you love bold-faced questions? All the time. All right. So by the way, we're going to do a bold-faced question. And how we do that is we're going to do this the e-GMAT way. And the boldface section is actually a part of the e-GMAT free trial. So if you, I think it will give you a great introduction to that. But here's an approach that we'll follow in the boldface question. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to read the argument, and as we read the argument, we're going to read and classify every statement. So I'm going to help you do this. Then, after we do that, we're going to see how it relates to the preceding statement. Okay. Once we have completed our reading, what we are going to do is we're going to understand how the statements relate to the conclusion. And then we're going to pre-think, hey, what is boldface 1? And the format is going to be boldface 1 is X, and it supports or refutes the conclusion. Very, very simple. And then I'm going to leave you guys to evaluate the answer choices. And as you evaluate the answer choices, make sure that you evaluate each and every element of the answer choice and cross it out. I'm going to give you enough time. Okay, so let's see. Bold-faced questions, by the way, are a lot of fun. So let's do the analysis. Okay, so we have the passage. They are a lot of fun. Trust me, Rahul. If once you know how to do them, they are a ton of fun. So let's do the analysis. The first statement says stock prices of companies, which companies? Companies that exceed $100 billion in revenues, also called extremely large caps, rarely beat the market over a 5-year period. So there are a couple of things that we want to talk about. It's not talking about, so it's talking about stock prices of companies, but it's not talking about all the companies. You have that, which is a relative pronoun, and it talks about a segment of companies that exceed $100 billion. Which it says that segment is also called extremely large caps. So the stock prices of these companies rarely beat the market over a 5-year period. So what is this? When you read this, what is the first thing that you come to? What is it? Is it a fact? Is it a claim? One thing that Israeli says, don't look at premise and conclusion. And why is it that you can't really look at a premise or a conclusion at this point? You know, you have, okay. So when I look at this, it seems to me it's again looking at it in isolation. It also seems to me it's also an observation, right? It could be an opinion, but we don't really know that. It seems more like a fact to me. Okay, so you can call it a fact. You can also call it an observation, right, or a principle. Why is it not an opinion? Rishikant, what's the thing about an opinion? What's the thing about an opinion? An opinion is a belief. It's someone's view. Versus what is a fact? Versus what is a fact? A fact is something that is proven. If and I'm an alone and I can see the sun outside, you can't say it is my opinion. It's because because the verified the sun is outside, I can see it, right? On the other hand, I base if I basically say if you take the e-GMAT course, you're likely to ace the GMAT. That's my opinion. We can't verify it. It's something that I believe to be true. Fact versus opinion. So this is something that can be validated, right? The stock prices of companies rarely beat the market over a 5-year period. Something that can be validated. And the way it's written, it seems like a fact. Then let's say it is commonly thought that this happens because the company is too big to grow faster than the overall market. Okay. So first of all, when you look at this, what is the author presenting in the second statement? It's an opinion. Okay. It's an opinion. Whose opinion is it? Whose opinion? Let's kind of get this. And this is something which is very, very important over here. Um, and I'm going to put in a poll question. So whose opinion do you think it is? Authors or publics? Let's get in a few more answers. We have over 200 attendees in this session. Let's get at least 130 answers. So we have 100 121, 122, 123, 120, 120, 127. Let's get three more. Let's get three more. Is it the author's opinion or is it the public's opinion? Okay, 129, we have 130. I'm going to end the poll right now. So the majority wins very simply. It is not the author's opinion, it is someone else's opinion. Okay, and I think someone else is most likely public, but it's not the author. See how it's written. It is commonly thought. Okay, when you say it's commonly thought, the author is saying probably is not my opinion, it's someone else's opinion, but there's a common thinking that that this happens because of this. Okay, why is it? Why is it that it? Why does it matter whether it's author's opinion or someone else's opinion? Why does it matter? Why does it matter? It wouldn't affect the conclusion. Oh, it will. So let's kind of park this point. But everyone agrees with this that this is he's listing a general belief or a public opinion, right? Then he says, however, and you have a keyword over here. Studies show. I'm going to move this away. Studies show that ELCs that provide higher returns than the market over a 5-year period, a majority of them are run by their founders. Okay. Then the author presents another very interesting observation. He says that those ELCs that provide higher return than the market. Okay, so remember it's a complementary group, right? And he presents a fact about those ELCs. He says the majority of them are run by their founders, right? So the author lists an exception, or I said a complementary segment. ELCs that provide higher return than the market is that complementary segment or that exception. The boldface, a majority, which is a majority of them are run by their founders, is a characteristic of that exception. Everyone agrees with me so far? Things are simple, right? Then he says, since most of the ELCs are run by professional management that is inherently risk averse. So what is sense? Any e-GMAT student over here? What is sense? In terms of keyword, what does sense indicate? It's a premise indicator, yes. For those of you who've done the premise and conclusion concepts, sense is a premise indicator. Since most of the ELCs are under professional management that is inherently risk averse, so the author brings another fact to life. Prior to this statement, you didn't know that ELCs were run by professional management and that professional management is inherently risk averse. Okay. The study's findings strongly suggests that the real reason why most ELCs don't beat the market is not that they're too big to grow, but rather that they're run by professional management that is too risk averse. So what is this part over here? What is the last statement? It's the conclusion. Whose conclusion is it? Whose conclusion? Author's conclusion, yes. Right? And the second boldface is the author's explanation why ELCs don't grow. The second boldface is also the author's conclusion, by the way. Right? And the second boldface also refutes the accepted belief. Right? So everyone's there with me so far. So let's look at characterizing. So we kind of understood what the passage was. Let's characterize each of the boldface statement. So boldface one, what's a premise indicator, Lava? Premise indicator is something that indicates that a premise is coming. Okay. And why is it the author's conclusion? Because that's the takeaway. That's the purpose of writing the argument. Okay. So let me ask this. Boldface one, a majority of them are run by their founders. Is that a fact or an opinion? Excuse me. It's a fact, right? Does that, and I'm going to use a poll question over here. Does boldface one, and let's see if we can get the question. Does boldface 1 support the author's conclusion or refute the author's conclusion? Let's get 130 responses over here. And this is an important question. Does boldface 1 is a majority of them are run by the founders. Does it support the author's conclusion or does it refute the author's conclusion? I'm going to give you 30 seconds to think about that. 100 responses, 105, 104 responses. Let's get a few more. Does boldface 1 support the author's conclusion or does it refute it? We have 115, 118 responses. 123, 25. 127. It's still 127. Three more. Folks who are on the edge, does it support or refute? 128, 129, 130. Let me close the poll. So but 67% of you think it supports, about 32% of you think it refutes. Let me ask this. What's the litmus test to determine whether the statement supports or refutes the author's conclusion? What is the litmus test? Okay, negation. Negation is a perfectly valid litmus test, I must say. How many of you are and if you don't know negation, don't worry about it. But how many of you are comfortable with negation? Okay, there are a few of you who are, and there are a few who are not. Okay, so I'm gonna give you a test which is very similar to negation, but is much easier to apply. And I call that test, what I call is a disappearance test. Okay, the one issue that a lot of people have in negation is how to negate a statement, and once they know what's the correct negation of a statement, they basically are able to apply the negation test really well, right? Right? Negation is really the first step, which is to negate, is probably the most challenging piece. Okay, so let me talk about a disappearance test. A disappearance test is very simple. What it really says is, look at the statement that you want to test. Okay, so let's look at the statement that we want to test. And over here, the statement that we want to look at is the statement over here. A majority of them are run by their founders. So that's step one. Step one is to read the statement that you have. Step two is to really say what would happen to the conclusion if the statement were not present. So if the statement disappears from the argument, if I remove the fact that a majority of them are run by their founders, what would happen to the conclusion over here? Does the conclusion become less believable or more believable? If I remove this fact, from the argument, then what happens? The conclusion becomes less believable, right? So if removing a statement makes the conclusion less believable, then what does the statement do to the conclusion? It strengthens the conclusion. It supports it. That's a very, very simple way to think about whether a statement supports or refutes. Okay. So boldface 1, very, very simply, is a characteristic of the companies that buck the trend. It's a fact that is provided to support the author's conclusion. Right? Boldface 2 is the reason for the observed trend. Right? It's also the author's conclusion, and it's also an explanation that the author favors. So I want you guys to kind of look at boldface 1 and boldface 2 very, very closely. Why? Because now comes your turn to answer the question. So now I'm going to have you answer the question. Here is the question. I'm going to bring in the poll window over here. I'm going to give you 2 minutes just to look at the answer choices. Here are the answer choices. And you guys get 2 minutes to select the right answer. Last 30 seconds, 30 seconds, folks. Last 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Let me close the poll. And how are the answer choices? Okay. You guys did actually reasonably well on this one. Very confusing. So let's kind of look at the answer choices, and I'm going to share the results of the poll. So we'll start with every answer choice. We'll start with an answer choice. Excuse me, and we'll analyze every answer choice. And it's not Mandarin, Rahul. It's fairly simple. If you just follow a systematic approach, I think that's kind of the key to GMAT. So let's look at this. We're going to start with choice B, B for boy. Okay. Choice B says the first is an objection. The first is, remember, the first is a majority of them are run by their founders. Okay. That has been raised. So first could be an objection, right? It's an objection. The first could be an objection. Nothing wrong with that because it's an objection to the first statement. But let's read on. Which objection? An objection that has been raised against a position defended in the argument. Okay. Does the argument defend any position? In this passage, does the argument defend a position? No, it opposes something. It doesn't defend this. Because this part is wrong, this part becomes wrong. and choice B becomes wrong. Okay, let's look at choice A. Okay, A for apple. The first is a claim, right? Is the first a claim? No, it isn't, right? The accuracy of which is at issue in the argument. Are we doubting the accuracy of first? Are we doubting that a majority of them are run by their founders? Are we doubting that? No, we are not. So this is wrong too. So which makes this wrong. Okay. So let's look at choice E. E for elephant. The first provides evidence. Can the first be evidence? Yes, no. The first can be evidence. I mean, a fact is an evidence. In fact, it is an evidence. But let's see if it's see what it's saying. The first provides evidence to do what? To refute an explanation that the argument favors. So let's look at this segment over here. What is another word for this? An explanation that the argument favors. What is another word for this over here? What is another word for this part? Guys. This is the conclusion. An explanation that the argument favors is the conclusion, right? Another word for an explanation that the argument favors is the conclusion. Does the first refute the conclusion? No. This is wrong. That relationship is wrong. So which makes choice E wrong. Okay? Everyone's there with me so far? Rishikant, what do you want me to explain? Girija, again. Girija, when you get an argument, and I'm going to address your question. When you get an argument, there are things in an argument that you should question, and there are things in an argument that you question. And we're going to talk about this. But if you can hold that point for I would say another 5 minutes, I'm going to address that. Okay? So hold it for 5 minutes, and I think you'll get absolute clarity on that. So let's look at choice D. Choice D says the first is evidence, right? The first can be evidence, which has been wrong annotation. Sorry about that. The first is evidence that has been used to support an explanation that the argument challenges. Does the first support an explanation that the argument challenges? What is the explanation that the argument challenges? What is that explanation is? ELCs are too big to grow, right? The argument challenges that. Does the first support that explanation? No. Right? The first does not support that explanation. And because of this one is wrong. Choice C, which is the correct answer, says, and it's structured very similarly to choice D. It says the first is evidence. Excuse me. That which evidence? That has been the evidence that has been used to support an explanation that the argument favors. An explanation that the argument favors, as we said, is the conclusion, and the first supports the conclusion, and the second is that actual explanation. So Harsha, I can tell you what to choose. So because every element is correct, right? Choice C is correct. Yes, the explanation. So let me just write this down in a note spot. Over here. That's the explanation that the argument challenges, right? Or that's the notion. Is that clear, guys? Okay. So what's the difficulty level? I think the top shows that it's about 650 level difficulty, this question. And again, your overall accuracy kind of is very, very close to it. So 52% of you answered this question correctly. And you can really see choice D is the next most popular choice. I'm kind of, if you are in C or D, I think you're kind of in the zone. But if you've chosen A, then I think I'm very concerned about you. But again, remember, the purpose of this session was not to really help you master boldface. As I said, we have an entire free trial where you have 20 boldface questions over there that uh, 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 that you can practice. Rahul, I wouldn't really say that's the good or bad pool of applicants. Again, we've had students who started at B21 and have gone, which is like 25 percentile, and have improved to 90, 93 percentile or so. So again, what really matters is fundamentally how you spend your time after this and how you improve, right? So again, you have these over here, and I'm going to give you the PDF. But I think the key thing over here is 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 to understand. And remember, we talked about the core skills and your score being plateauing. The key thing over here is to understand where you failed, to understand why did you answer this question correctly, incorrectly. Hold on. Why did you answer this question incorrectly? I think that's the key point. And in the chat window, why did you make a mistake? And you have one of these three. And again, it's very, very important that you identify that, because unless and until you identify where you're faltering, you can't work towards improving it. Yaku, we can do one more question at the end of the session, but fundamentally, if you look at the core skills for boldface, these are the four core skills. Every time you answer a question incorrectly, especially when you answer it incorrectly, you've got to figure out where you're failing. And then if there is one area where you're failing again and again and again and again, and that's an area that you need to work on to improve beyond a point. And Praveen, so if the wordings used in answer choices are complex, then you have to really say which part of the wording was complex. What is making you fail over here? It's more about peeling the onion to get to the core of it and address that core. That leads to improved ability. Okay. And if this is difficult to you, then I think you've got to master that difficulty, because remember, you guys want to get into business. You guys want to be able to make $1 million decisions. That does require you to put in some effort. That does require that you show some tenacity. Okay. So with that, we are probably coming towards the end of the session, and I do have a couple of more questions over here that I can practice at the end of the session, but I want to make sure those of you who want to go, we actually uh, complete the session. So I'm going to talk about the last part of the session, which is the three stages of learning, and then if at the end of it, if there are still students who want to learn more, who want to do one problem, we'll do that. Okay. So I'm going to talk about the three stages of learning and how is it that we learn. And a lot of you are at the beginning stages of learning. 60% of you said that even more than 60 days before the exam. So if you think about how we learn, the first thing when you see any new thing is you learn a particular concept. So when you're reading grammar, you learn, hey, what's a modifier, what's a parallel list, what's a verb ing modifier. You're absorbing these new concepts. Um, so that's something over there. Once you learn a bunch of concepts, you've got to learn how to apply them, which is very, very different from learning the concepts themselves. Okay. Once you learn how to apply them, you've got to really reach that higher level of reduction where, when you see a particular question type, the application becomes a lot more efficient. Okay. So if you look at the e-GMAT course, we kind of divided our content into these stages. And for those of you who are e-GMAT students, should make sure that your attention is appropriate as you're interacting with various kinds of content. When you are in this early phase, when you're learning new concepts, that's something that's done in the boldface concept files. Oh, sorry, excuse me, in the e-GMAT concept files. So in the e-GMAT course, you have over 100 concept files. Excuse me. Excuse me. So in the e-GMAT course, you have over 100 concept files, and each of those concept files has in-place exercises. So basically, you do a concept, you have an exercise with a lot of SC concepts before, and with every concept, whether it's SC, CR, or RC, after the concept. The purpose of a concept file is to make sure you know what that concept is about. And as you take the exercises towards the end, make sure you understand that, make sure you get an 80% score on those exercises because it tells you that you've understood the concept. If your score is less than 80%, go back to the concept. And we call this what I say is a quality control at a concept level. Okay. So for those of you who want to go and take the boldface, the e-GMAT free trial and look at the boldface files, focus on purely the understanding what various terms are because that's a conceptual understanding. Okay. Then comes the application. So the application is a part of the application files. When you get to an application file, we should have already learned all the concepts corresponding to that application file. When you go through an application file, focus on how we are teaching how to apply the concepts. Okay, and the distinction between concept files and application files, and they're named appropriately, is so that your focus can be different. Look at how we methodically approach a question step by step, like we did in the boldface question. We said, okay, we're going to read the argument first, we're going to pre-think, and then we're going to evaluate the answer choices. When you come to the live session, and this is more for verbal live prep students, as you come to the live sessions, make sure you've done the pre-work. In the e-GMAT live sessions, what we really do is we do advanced applications. Our goal is to reach that higher level, right? And so it's very, very advanced reduction that we lead to do that. And if you've done the concepts and application, if you've done the prerequisites, then you would really find that your improvement is tremendous within a couple of weeks. And for those of you, I really recommend that you look at the verbal live prep study plan. So if you are a verbal online student, you're actually going to go through these stages of learning. And again, one of the things that I want to emphasize, I've kind of really talked about most of it already, is as you do the application files, at the end of application files, we have a list of OG questions that you must do after this. Even if you've done the OG questions, try them again with the methods that are taught in the application file. In our experience of more than 5,200 students, we've found that people who do this actually have a much higher improvement. Also, make sure the level qualifying exercises, the LQE is a level qualifying exercise, is something that you do well on. Also, make sure the free live sessions that we give you, you attend those. When you do this, you will have done close to 1,600 questions by the time you complete verbal online. And by the way, if you've done this well, timing is not going to be an issue for you. At the end of verbal online, every month we do about 2 verbal workshops. A verbal workshop is a deep dive into your ability. Do not miss the verbal workshop. In the verbal workshop, we'll give you a quiz and we'll analyze your performance. We'll tell you where you did wrong, why you did wrong. It's something that's included in your package. It's something that we worked very hard on. It's something that's responsible for over 15,760 plus scores since the last, I think we introduced this in July of last year. We are the only company that does that. We spend three experts, spend 4 hours on the verbal workshop and when we do it with you. Make sure you take advantage of it. Okay. So again, in terms of the concept files, you would see a few different kinds of concept files. The first set of concept files is what I call as the foundation concepts. In the foundation concepts, you would see concepts such as which really are a must for you to be able to answer questions. So a few of you said in the bold first question, the way the answer choices are worded was very complex and you're not used to reading that. How we address that? We address that in our sentence structure concepts in the SC course, because fundamentally how you make a complex answer choice is by combining various clauses and phrases. So make sure you do through the go through the foundation concepts. Okay, and a bunch of these concepts are a part of the e-GMAT free trial as well. So I think about 60% of them are a part of the free trial. Then you go to the core concepts. So in sentence correction course, which is the example that we are taking over here, and then this is true for CR and RC as well. But in the sentence correction course, there are about 26 core concept files which talk about lists, which talk about noun plus noun modifiers and a bunch of other things. Make sure you go through them. These concepts teach you, these files teach you concepts that you probably have not studied before, and it will help you master those. Again, each of these files has an exercise at the end. Make sure you score 80%. If you have a doubt, each of these files has an associated forum. Click there. It's a forum icon right next to each concept. And make sure that you search that whether your doubt's been addressed there already or not. In the SC part, we have addressed over 3,500 queries, and all of those queries reside there. So make sure you do that. Okay, here's something which is a part of the free trial. For those of you who are not e-GMAT students, you can do that. Then comes the application files. So again, in the e-GMAT SC course, actually now there are 11 application files, not 9. Make sure you do this and apply the process diligently. Okay. And then we have what we call as an in-depth series. And the purpose of in-depth series is we've taken a few of the sentence correction concepts and really we've delved into these concepts in such a depth that it's not available anywhere else on the planet. For example, for idiomatic uses of as versus like, we have 4 files about 50 questions where we just tell you every possible way how as and like are used. And where they can be used exclusively, where they can be used interchangeably. We have 4 files at meaning in SC, and also in addition to that, about 80 exercise questions that test just meaning. So make sure you do that. As you come for live sessions, and again, here's just the SC live sessions. Make sure you have done the prerequisites. If you have done the prerequisites, then you will find that the live sessions take you to a completely different level. I have a question over here, which I see in the poll window. You have a certain score, let's 64 percentile. How much do you think you can expect? I'll say this one thing, right? So we guarantee a 4-point jump, but that's not all that you should limit yourself to. Success in test prep is a combination of your diligence and our help to you. And these are 2 pillars. What it really means, it's like an AND gate for those of you who are engineers. If either one is missing, the outcome is 0. We can teach you a whole lot of stuff. If you're not diligent, you're not going to improve. Similarly, you can put in a lot of effort. If you're not putting that in the right direction, the improvement would not be as much. But if both of us are doing our job, then the improvement can be tremendous. And so if you're currently at 65 percentile, there's nothing stopping you from getting to 95, 96 percentile if you are diligent and if you can spend the time. We do have, for those of you who are in Verbal Life Prep, we do have these 4 workshops. Please do not miss the workshops. I actually get a lot of questions from people who are from Australia, who are from Singapore, who are from again Southeast Asia as well as Australia, because for them our live sessions are very late for them. I really say, okay, you can access the recording of live sessions, but when it comes to workshops, please stay up. These are the 4 sessions that I do not want you to miss. And the SCCR and RC workshop, you can now take that on demand, but please attend the live analysis because this is where we give you feedback. The verbal workshop is the only thing where I want you to stay up till 3 in the morning and attend that. Just one. I don't think it's asking a whole lot. So how do you compare the e-GMAT source with some of the other courses? And this is just the SC course. What you can really see is in terms of comprehensiveness, in terms of the mode of delivery, in terms of the support that we provide, I think it's way, way, way better than anyone else. And then we have a support part, which is where we have a service level agreement. We have our courses which are super comprehensive. And again, I invite you to try that out. So with that, I think I'm going to just go towards the end of this session over here. We wanted to talk about the core skills for GMAT verbal. Okay. So in terms of sentence correction, the real core skills that you need to is, and this is at a very high level, each one of these actually think of them as a tree. So sentence structure has a tree behind it as well. But at a very high level, if I were to explain it to you, the core skills for sentence correction are sentence structure, understanding the meaning, and grammar. And where can you get that? Make sure that you go through the e-GMAT free trial, do the sentence structure 1 and 2, and importance of meaning. The core skills for critical reasoning, are the ability to read and comprehend, which, by the way, come from sentence structure. And you guys have already seen that while you're evaluating the answer choices. The ability to contextualize an argument, and we do that. And for those of you who attended the pre-thinking session last week, you probably know that. The ability to pre-think and then evaluate the answer choices, which again leads to reading and comprehension. Reading comprehension. Reading strategies are a key. You need to be able to read a passage, do predictive reading. You need to be able to understand the transitions. And make sure we have, I think e-GMAT's the only course that has close to an hour and a half of content that teaches you how to read. We don't tell you just that, we actually teach you how to read. We have 4 files for reading strategies. So make sure you do that. We teach you what are the keywords over there. And of course, there's some knowledge of vocabs that is very, very important for reading comprehension. In the end, how should you evaluate a GMAT course? I think here are the 5 factors that you should evaluate the GMAT, any course with. You should look at whether the course offers you a complete package, whether it teaches you application of concepts. Because remember, on the GMAT, you're tested on the application of concepts, not just the concepts themselves. Does it give you enough practice problems? Does it come with support? Does it have a proven history of success along with you? And what you would really find is that the e-GMAT course actually excels on all of these factors. A few things that I want you to take away with GMAT as an exam is a test of application, right? It's not just an awareness of concepts. You may know the concepts. If you don't know how to apply them, you're not going to do well on the GMAT. To continuously improve on the GMAT, you need to make sure that you build on your core skills, that you excel over there. This is something that we didn't address, but we'll address that in the next SC1 session. Timing. A lot of people fret a lot over timing. Timing is not a skill that you develop. It is an outcome of your improvement in core skills. So as you focus on improving core skills, your timing improves. It's kind of in manufacturing, timing is like profitability. As you improve the quality of your product, as you improve the distinctness of your product, your profitability improves. You can't say I'm going to work on improving profits. What you can really say is I'm going to work on improving quality. I'm going to work on improving the differentiation of my product, and that will help you get more profits. With that, we've come to the end of the session. I'll be happy to take any questions over here. Here's a listing of some free concepts in the e-GMAT course. We do have diagnostics for every let's say section. So, any questions? When does the first live session start? The first live session starts on next week, basically. SC1 is next week on the 15th. So here's the schedule. I'm going to just reduce this over here so that I can put the schedule. Session files, you can download these. How do you measure improvement in score? Through a CAT. That's one way to measure improvement in score. We have section level diagnostics. We have our workshops where we give you your percentiles. So those are the three ways that you will measure the improvement in score. Rochan, you can. The key thing is, can you put in about 24, 25 hours in a week to study? I've attended a free CR 15 question test and you've gotten 13%. So Yaku, again, the CR diagnostic tells you your percentile, right? So yes, it shows you the mirror, and basically if you're really weak in CR, then if you think that's the only section that you need help with, then take the CR course. So Joe, Joe asks that many, and I'm going to just move the chat window here so that I make sure I don't miss any question. Joe asks, there are certain lists of books that you should read for reading comprehension. Do you guys suggest have a similar list? I can give you the list. It's not going to be very different from what you see on forums, which is The Economist, which is the Wall Street Journal, Harvard Business Review, Journal of American History, and blah, 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 blah. But as you read those, I think the key thing for you is, are you building in good habits? If you blindly read just articles, then what's going to happen is you're going to improve your familiarity with words. So you're going to really get some improvement, but you're going to hit a plateau. The key to improving reading comprehension, is to get good habits and is to really be able to really incorporate those reading strategies as you read those articles. So yes, while reading more is going to help you, but it's not going to help you beyond a point unless and until you incorporate the reading strategies in that. So Tim, we require for verbal live prep that you put in about 18 to 20 hours a week. If you want to do quant along with it, then you need 25 hours. Okay, Rahul, take the SC course. John, if it's just 1 week, I can have 2 recommendations depending on where you are. If you're very comfortable with everything else on the GMAT, if there's just one section that you need to improve on, I'd say take an e-GMAT course on that section. Or the other recommendation that I would say is go back, revise your mocks, and see where revise your mistakes and give your best shot. How much for CR? So again, you can look at the prices on our buy page. CR course is $69. We do not offer OG questions as a part of Verbal Life Prep. The OG questions are copyrighted. We cannot offer OG questions. How to avail the $299 offer? Just look up that email that you have for $299. Click on the link and go from there. How can e-GMAT specifically help with RC? I would recommend take the RC course. Here is what people say about the RC course. Do you need to set a timer, Rochan? No, you don't. You don't need to set a timer. What if you miss a live session? I think that's very exciting. So if you miss a live session, then you obviously can view the recording. In fact, as soon as you join the Verbal Live Prep, You get access to one full set of recordings right away. And in fact, we've had students who've just taken the recordings along with the e-GMAT verbal online piece to and ace the GMAT. But what really the nice thing about e-GMAT course is you get access for 6 months, and we have a batch starting every 20-25 days. So if you miss a session, you can actually attend the same session in the next batch. What is better, to prepare for TOEFL or for GMAT, in my opinion? I would say to prepare for GMAT, because if you prepare for GMAT, then you prepare for TOEFL right then and there. I actually studied for TOEFL for probably 2 hours before I gave the exam, because I'd already taken the GMAT. If you take TOEFL and then study for the GMAT, it's not going to help you a whole lot. But you're going to spend a whole lot of time studying for TOEFL anyway. So I believe the more efficient way is finish the GMAT and then do TOEFL. And the other thing is, if you have a really good GMAT score, you may be able to convince some schools to really say, "Hey, don't worry about the TOEFL, because you have the GMAT score that's quite representative." Tuam, maybe you do that. Yes. Jishan asked if he takes the SC course, can he merge it with Global Life Prep? Definitely. So we at e-GMAT we have what we call as a painless upgrade process, because we know that 90% of our students buy either Verbal Online or Global Life Prep, and a lot of students start with just the SC course and upgrade to it, and it kind of shows how sure we are of the quality that we offer. Because if you look at most of the other test prep companies, they'll penalize you to upgrade. At e-GMAT, you can start with the smallest offering that we have and upgrade by just paying the difference. Okay, any other questions, guys? And once again, we have a free session on sentence correction coming up next week. Yaku, again, I think I answered your question that you can attend our that you can join the CR course and you can finish it in less than 20 days or so. We've had a lot of students who finish their courses in less than, actually we've had students who've done the course in less than 10 days and done really well. So here is one such student over here. You do not need to complete all of SC. You just need to put in about 3 hours of effort in SC. So again, you would really see that. Rahul, if you take the SC course, if you have some questions, just put them in the forum that is out there. Yes, Tim, it's very much possible to complete the verbal online course before then. In fact, we have many students. If you can spend about 100 hours before 24th of April, which by the way is a lot of time, then you can definitely improve. We've had a lot of students who've done that. In fact, we have an entire section devoted to students who finish the course in less than 30 days. Vladimir, so the free concepts are a part of the free trial. We give about 20% of our courses free of charge to really tell you the quality that we offer. Okay, and what is the 299 course? So the 299 course is the Verbal Life Prep course. Here are the details of Verbal Life Prep. Is audio available for students during the course? Normally not. I mean, if you have a mic and if it's working, then you can ask questions towards the end. But one thing that I would really tell students is that if you like our free sessions, then you will love our paid sessions, because the number of students is much less, is between 30 and 40, and everyone who's over there is super motivated. Also, for the paid sessions, we have 2 instructors over there instead of 1 for the free session. Lava, we do not do a profile evaluation for for an MBA application. We'll do your ability evaluation with regards to the GMAT. We are not an application consulting company, so we do not offer that service. Uh, Rahul, IR is important, but I recommend people to do IR towards the end, probably a week before their GMAT. Spend 2 days, take our IR course, and get done with it. If you've done the quant and the verbal part well, IR will be a cakewalk. Yes, we do have mocks in the course with verbal online. Again, we have 5 mocks from 800 score, and you also get, in addition to that, GMAT club test. So you can really see that over here as to what's listed. What is the best time to give the GMAT in 2014? April, May is the best time to give the GMAT for the very simple reason it gives you enough time for applications. Is AWA covered? Technically, no. And I say technically no, but really, once you go through our CR sessions, AWA will be a cakewalk. If you need help, I'll be happy to provide you with some template. But frankly, I won't worry about AWA. Do you help in choosing MBA colleges? Rishikant, the short answer is not exactly, but really for our students, we actually bring in MBA schools on our platform. So last year we actually brought in ISB and BAPS, and this year we plan to bring in pretty much everyone in the top 10. This year we actually had a scholarship from ISB for e-GMAT students sometime in January of this year. But we do have relationships with other admission consulting companies that will help you do that. But if you have a question to really say, hey, I'm stuck between these 4 colleges, I can't decide which one to focus on, then I can definitely help you. I did have admission from some of the top schools in the world, and I did have 2 full fellowships, so I didn't pay for my B school education in US. So I do have a fair idea about US and UK. Is it important to prepare for AWA and IR? Yes, Anastasia. Anastasia, it is important. Rishikant, when you say MBA IT, it has various facets to it. Kamal, no comment on the quant part. So if you want to do an MBA in project management, then I should say you look at PMP certifications first. But other than that, you basically are looking at a very small segment of schools. Retail. ASU is really good. Anything with supply chain is really good because that's very, very closely related to retail. Kellogg's really good over there as well because there's the marketing side of retail. Ramesh, yes, you can. And I think you got a link. Write to me at project@e-GMAT.com if you have any questions. And I can send you the link. Or you can write to the support email address and they'll send you that as well. Sailesh, in addition to Verbal Live Prep, I recommend buying the OG, the official guide, the official OG Verbal 2nd edition, and the GMAT Prep. Do not use any other books. Do not use e-GMAT. Do not use PowerScore. You won't need those. Yes, Srikanth. A 750 does impact the MBA admission significantly, especially if you have a low GPA. And because it really shows that if you have a low GPA and a high GMAT score, it shows that you can handle the academic rigors of a B school. It also shows that you are basically a smart guy. I can tell you this. So we hire MBAs as well at e-GMAT. This year we actually were invited to IIM Calcutta, IIM Ahmedabad, as well as ISB for placements. And for students who had a low GPA, we did look at their GMAT score as well. So it's not just during admissions, but even post admissions when you go for a job, we look at the student's CAT score or GMAT score as we evaluate them. What's the mean score and standard deviation for the courses on the slide? Rahul, I think that's not the right question to ask And the reason for that is because different people start the course at different points in time, right? The right question to ask is what's the mean improvement and standard deviation over there? Because really, if you're starting at a V22, and if I'm able to take you to V30, it's a huge improvement. If you're starting at a V34 and I'm able to take you to V38, that's a big improvement, right? And so we track our improvement based on for verbal live prep and verbal online. So on an average, with verbal online, an average student improves about 5 to 6 points on a scale of 60, and that's average. With verbal live prep, that improvement is 7 to 8 points on a scale of 60. And that's what allows us to give you, a 4 point guarantee and still make sure that our return rate is less than 1%. So with verbal live prep, we had 1,000 students in the last 1 year, and we had less than 11 returns. So how can you improve your reading speed? Destina, you can improve your reading speed by following the reading strategies, by making sure you do predictive reading, by ensuring that you follow the keywords. And again, so for reading strategies, look at the RC course. Books that you suggest for quant. Jeff Sackman's book on quant. GMAT club tests are an excellent resource. Manhattan GMAT books are good. All right, guys. With that, I'm going to end the session. How much would it cost for the overall school's ranking 15 to 20? I'd say about $100,000 or so. But if you have a fellowship, then like I did because I had a great GMAT score, then nothing. Website for mock GMAT, SR Panda, take the paper test in OG. In addition to that, you can take our diagnostics. All right, guys, if you have any other questions, you can send to me. Thank you very much.